that you're going to. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Modeling PaintCast. My name is Ashton, your bearded host behind the brush. Thanks for being here tonight and for our third PaintCast this evening. I'm going on 2 hours straight now. I've been doing this, so this is fantastic. Loving every minute of it. We've got JT on the air with us here. JT, you want to say hi?
Yeah, hey everybody, I'm your bearded guest behind the camera tonight.
You rock a beard too, JT?
Definitely, man.
Awesome, awesome. The beard, I started growing mine, gosh, I got to be approaching a year now that I've had it.
Nice.
Yeah, and I've got probably about 3.5, 4 inches of length, I think. So,
Oh, wow.
oh yeah, it's pretty full, man. It's fun. I've been enjoying every minute of it, man. I got a nice handlebar mustache rocking on it, and it's good times. Every now and then, though, when I'm painting, when I'm doing the two-brush blending thing, I'll get some paint in my beard. So I gotta be careful of that.
Yeah, I feel you. I got the same problem.
So what we're working on with you, JT, is your Signar charger here, and your paint cast. You wanted to really talk about the whole two-brush blending process, and we've covered that in a lot of detail, not only in how we've done the blue on the model here, but in how we've done the gunmetal color as well, for the boiler and the arms and the shoulder sockets and stuff like that. And what I'm doing right now is just adding the second coat of the gold here prior to us doing some blending and highlighting on the gold.
Very cool.
Yeah, so tonight we'll go over that. We'll talk about knocking out some of the smaller details like rivets and the eyes and stuff like that, and get that going. And then on your two pieces here, the arms that still need to be done, I'll actually go over applying the base coat, because there's some pieces on there that still need to be base coated that were just airbrushed in the gunmetal color.
Cool.
So we were saying just before we got on air, you're going to go see the Avengers this weekend?
Yeah, definitely. Probably Saturday, I'm hoping.
Nice. And you really dig the Vision from the comic books, huh?
Oh yeah, I'm a huge fan of the Vision.
Yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool. He's well played in this movie. I think they capture him pretty well, and they bring in a little bit of humor with him too, which is nice. So.
Yeah, that's always nice, and I think that's why I like Marvel's movies a little bit better than DC's, is because they don't take themselves seriously.
Yeah. Well, you know what I think it is. Honestly, I think it's the writer director Joss Whedon.
Yeah.
He is brilliant when it comes to managing a storyline that involves a lot of big characters.
Yeah, definitely.
Did you catch Firefly? The whole Firefly Serenity series?
Oh yeah, I love Firefly. Firefly and his run on Astonishing X-Men, that's like one of my favorite comic book runs pretty much ever. Yeah.
He's a very, very talented, very gifted writer, director, producer, everything, man. I got a man crush on that guy.
Oh yeah, me too.
Not afraid to say it either.
Yeah, we're all friends here.
So I'm going to use my detail brush here and paint this gold trim right above his eyes.
Very cool, okay.
It's just going to be the first coat on that. I'll definitely need to go back and touch that up. When you're doing small details like this, as much as possible, try to use the side of the brush as opposed to the tip. That way you're not getting any paint on the layer below it,
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, so I'm going to let this gold sit and dry for just a minute, and then we're going to go back to applying the base color on the Charger's cannon arm here. So,
Very cool.
so this was, I just used my airbrush. This is pig iron airbrushed over black primer, okay? But this area on the gun right here should be blue, okay?
Right.
So we want to apply that base coat and then we'll start working on some two-brush blending there, and then also on the other arm as well, okay? Because that's just the base color there. And if you'll remember from our previous paint cast, what I had done for the base coat was I created more of a highlight base coat as opposed to a shadow base coat. So that way you could work down into the shadows as opposed to working up into the highlights. It's a little easier that way. And if I remember correctly, it was 2 parts Signar Blue highlight to 1 part Frostbite.
Right.
So I've got my wet palette here, and I'm just going to mix this up a little bit on there.
And hey, Ashton, on your wet palette, are you using just butcher paper or the baking parchment, or are you using the stuff that came with it?
Yep, this is just baking parchment. I don't do any prep to it other than just putting it down on the wet palette and letting it soak. I do take the roll and cut it into small manageable sections though,
Right.
so that way I'm not constantly tearing it out. I've got, show you here, I'm getting down to the end of my pile, so it's not laying very flat, it's pretty rolled up, but I've just got a whole wad of the butcher paper or the baking paper that I've cut into, you know, pieces that are more manageable, and I keep in my drawer here next to my painting studio, our painting desk, so that way as a palette fills, or as a paper fills up in the palette, I just pull it off, put a new one on.
Right.
So, and this has not been thinned. This is just the 2 colors mixed directly on the palette and just being brushed on.
Cool. Yeah, I guess the wet palette, it really, I mean, those P3 paints are so thin to begin with. I'm sure the wet palette pretty much just takes care of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, I depending on what kind of technique I'm using, I may or may not thin the paint. You know, if I'm creating some glazes or something like that, you know, I'll thin the paint down a little further on the wet palette. But for the most part, when I'm just doing base coats over small areas like this, I don't even bother thinning the paint. I don't need to.
Right.
You know, but everybody's painting style is a little bit different, so there's kind of the first coat on there. One thing I do recommend when you're applying base coats by brush, this first layer I kind of went vertically with my strokes. When you come back on that second layer, go the opposite direction, and that'll help. It helps avoid brush strokes on the surface when you do that.
Right.
It's not always practical to do that, but when it is, it's good practice.
And I figure that has to give you excellent coverage when you can do that, for sure.
Yeah, you get some pretty smooth coats, and that's one of the things that's very important to 2-brush blending is you need to have a smooth base coat. If your base coat has any painting streaks in it or globs of paint or anything like that, you're not going to be able to smoothly blend out that surface very well at all, actually. Excuse me.
Bless you.
I'm coming off a cold. I spent all last weekend fighting a cold and getting horrible sleep, and I'm still dealing with a little bit of a cough from it. So, and all the talking isn't helping. So, yeah. So I've been actually coughing all night. I'm not looking forward to listening to the audio of this when I go to clean everything up for YouTube.
Oh yeah, I got you. You sound good to me, man. I'm sorry to hear you were sick though.
Yeah, you know, I've got kids. I've got 4 kids. My oldest is 7. My youngest is 9 months old. And so, as much as I love them, they are a breeding ground for virus and bacteria.
Oh yeah.
as most young children are, you know. And so I take a multivitamin every day, and you know, I think that really, for the most part, throughout the year, helps me stay pretty resistant to the colds and stuff that go around. But about once or twice a year, I get hit with one pretty hard, and that was this weekend. So
Yeah. No, I totally hear you. I'm glad you got it out of the way at least, right?
yeah, I'm good for the rest of the year now. So
Yeah.
my dance ticket's full. You know, let's move on.
Right.
And to make matters worse, I was on call last night at the emergency room and didn't get in bed this morning till about 2:00. So, and then up for work at 6 for my other job. So it's been a long day.
Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah.
Sounds brutal, man.
It's really not so bad. I don't need 8 hours of sleep. I do well with about 6 to 7. You know, I can function on 4, but I don't like doing that.
Yeah. Understandable.
So I'm just moving on to this gold while I'm waiting for the blue to dry a little more.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to need to come back and touch up a couple areas with some silver once this is dry, which is reasonable. That's going to happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we'll do this plate back here in the gold.
And are you using the? Is that a sable brush you're using on the scale color stuff too?
Yes, it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow, cool.
Yeah. Oh, and I forgot to mention that when I started painting that gold. Thanks. This is the gold I'm using is Viking gold from scale 75.
Mm-hmm.
That's the trim color that I'm using here. And we're going to shade this with probably umbral umber, and then we're going to highlight it with I think it's the scale 75. I think it's radiant gold, or elven gold is what it's called. So
right.
Yeah, that would be the highlight color, and we can really push it up a notch further. They have a color called citrine gold, which is a really, really bright gold, and that might work for some of the highlights on the rivets.
Very cool.
But yeah, this scale 75 stuff, especially their metallic paints, have some of the best coverage with metallic paints that I've dealt with so far. So I'm quite impressed with them.
Yeah, for sure. You sold me, man. I just bought a set. I got a set on the way to me right now.
Where'd you get them from?
I got them from a site called Fanatization, something like that.
Yep. Fanatization Miniatures. Yes, I know that website. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're pretty. They're a good site. I've bought a few things from them. Hangar 18 is where I've been buying my stuff, my scale 75 from, but as I've been hearing, they don't have much of it in stock right now. So.
Yeah, that's actually who I bought it from originally, and they had to unfortunately had to refund me because they said they were out of the gold. But the lady I talked to though, she said that they're probably getting more in the next week or so. So.
Cool. Yeah, they got to import it from Spain, so.
Right.
Yeah, it comes from a ways away.
Sure.
All right, so I'm going to let that dry for a bit. I probably will paint the inside of those gun cartridges right there gold, but that'll be one of the details I'll wrap up at the end. Getting to this guy though, the right hand with the hammer, and we want to get some of the two-brush blending done on this one. So, kind of following the same guideline that we used on the actual model itself. This arm you can kind of see, based on the angle there of kind of where how it's going to sit, and get an idea of where you're going to have to shade and where you're going to have to highlight. But we're just going to pull the shadow right here along the bottom, and then slowly kind of bring it up that way, focusing the shadow more at the center of the armor, the crease in the armor right there.
Right.
And for that, where is my dry palette at? Here we go. First shadow color we're going to use is just straight Signar blue base. Okay.
Cool.
And then get get your blending brush ready, which I need to grab mine off my hanger. There it is. So you got your blending brush, you got your mixing brush. All right, and starting right about here at the bottom, just put a dot of it there. Remember, you push into the color and then slowly pull out as you're pulling away.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want to clean this side of it up because we don't want to just leave that hard line there.
Right. And see, I think that's something I was messing up on too when I was first starting this, is because I would just blend into just one side of it, and then the other side would just leave like a long line. I thought it was just for like folds because of that.
Yeah,
so,
and you can create a pretty nasty paint ridge when you do it that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you want to try and avoid that if at all possible.
Definitely.
So build up some of the shadow along that edge there. And then same thing right down in here.
And I know I asked you about this in the last, in the first PaintCast we did together, but as far as your moisture goes, so you basically, get your brush clean and then you just run it through your mouth once, that's about it, right?
Yeah, that's about it.
Yeah.
And then, but I do keep it rinsed fairly often because I don't want a lot of paint to build up on the blending brush.
Mm-hmm.
I want the blending brush to stay mostly moisture and not very much paint. So you've got to rinse it often.
Right.
And I just keep a clean cup of water here that I have labeled not for drinking.
Sure.
Because that's pretty nasty, let me tell you.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Maddie Havoc is asking in the chat room, is that just water that I'm using to spread the paint around? Yes, it is. This is a technique called two-brush blending, and the technique works using two brushes. You have one brush that is your applicator brush, and you have one brush that is your blending brush. The blending brush has moisture on it. Some painters use their saliva, some painters use water. I use a mixture of the two. Kind of just depends on how quick I'm moving. And you simply apply a dot of paint where you want your shadow or highlight to be, and then using your blending brush, begin doing a back and forth motion, pushing into the paint, and then slowly pulling out, softening the edge of the color as you go. That, in a nutshell, is two-brush blending. Okay, this will probably be gold. We'll probably do that. Silver. We can do a little bit of shading and blending inside the fingertips there. On areas like this where the paint can just kind of wash, I will use a little bit more moisture on the brush to kind of wash the liquid around as opposed to blending it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely.
And you can see just how quickly that capillary action kind of takes over, and that paint just kind of pulls into those creases and cracks.
Yeah, for sure.
And like I was saying last time, don't get greedy with your shadows. We're going to build these shadows up slowly. Signar Blue base is the first shadow color, and we're going to pull that down a little further with some Exile Blue here in just a second.
Cool. I was just about to ask you about that, because I saw like in one of the books they like basically combined like Exile Blue and the Signar Blue base for like the lining and all that good stuff. So yeah, that's what I was just gonna curious about. Yeah.
Yeah, and we're going to do some black lining on this guy too, and my favorite color to black line with, and I use it all the time, is a mixture of coal black and umbral umber. In this case, we could probably do Exile Blue and umbral umber to make a nice dark blue color. That would suit our needs really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have both of those, so I'm looking forward to messing around with those for sure.
Oh yeah, they're great colors. They're great colors.
For sure.
Okay, so shadow-wise, I think for that intermediate we're pretty good. We can go down now to the next shade, which will just be straight Exile Blue. I actually had someone email me the other day, and I'm kind of reluctant to talk about this on air because I don't want this individual to think that I'm calling them out. But he commented that he felt like my painting was sloppy, and he and I, we chatted back and forth over a couple of emails, and if one person thinks that, there's a chance others think that. And I guess one thing that point that I was trying to make to him was these videos aren't about teaching someone how to paint competition level.
Right.
What I'm really trying to focus on with these PaintCasts is teaching people the kind of the base skills to produce a nice tabletop quality army on their own, so they don't feel like they're bound to either never have one or having some commission painter do it, And he disagreed with me, and I respectfully disagreed with him, and we parted ways. But that's really what these are about. It's just about teaching the skills, and I'm demonstrating them, but I'm not perfect. And I have no qualms about admitting that either. And I'm certainly, I don't try and present myself as being an expert painter. I'm a decent painter. I know how to do some things, but there's a lot of folks that are a lot better than me. And this is about teaching people those basics and giving them a little bit of confidence to do it on their own.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, it was an interesting conversation to say the least with this guy.
Yeah, sounds like.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. These have definitely helped me. I mean, like, this doesn't seem as daunting as it used to. Like, this has been so awesome seeing how this looks. So I really appreciate you doing these.
Yeah, and it's great, and I'm glad that thank you for that feedback, and I'm glad that you're getting something out of this, and that's that's what this is really all about, is just like that little 5-second clip that I show before I start every show about teaching a man how to paint. It's cliche. I know that, but it's so true. When you take the mystery out of this process, it empowers people to do this. You know, the fear goes away, the anxiety goes away, and it's suddenly not this big daunting task that, oh my gosh, I don't know where to start. You know, it becomes manageable. You know, essentially what I've done here, JT, and I don't know if you know what I do for a living. You know, my 9 to 5, I'm a social worker. I work with people with severe and persistent mental illness, and
Gotcha.
yeah, when they get out of a mental hospital, you know, they come to my team, and I'm the one that helps them develop the skills to stay living independent and to stay out of the hospital and you know, keep their symptoms under control. And I love my job, and really, I was thinking about it the other day. That's essentially what I'm doing here. I'm a social worker for painters. I'm teaching people skills to function independently in the painting world. You know.
Definitely.
It was an interesting epiphany, but I don't know. It's cool. I love what I do, both here on camera and yeah, my office. It's a great job. It's a lot of fun.
For sure.
Makes for an interesting day, I'll tell you that.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Just cleaning up some of the stray marks here before I start doing the blending on this thing.
Very
Okay, so let's get my blending brush and my application brush here. So looking at the gun from the side, most of our shadow is going to be applied down here in the bottom around the ejector, the shell ejector, on both sides.
Right.
So by the time we get up here to the top near the magazine, we should be full highlight. So
Cool.
let me just check something here real fast. All right. Spread that around now.
Yeah, I have a cane. I'm going to definitely try this out on pretty soon.
Which one, P-cane or E-cane?
P-cane.
He's a pretty good model to do two-brush blending on. You got a lot of nice, flat, smooth surfaces.
Yeah, especially that coat.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And if you're thinking of doing any kind of browns or anything like that, those are actually really good colors to start with. Browns and blues in the P3 paints are really good coverage and are really smooth when it comes to two-brush blending. So you should be able to do some good practice with that.
Yeah, I was thinking about like a red leather, so I was probably going to do something like, yeah, like Guncore Brown or something like that.
Did you see the PaintCast I did on the Epic cane earlier?
Oh yeah, I love that one.
Yeah, that's bloodstone, that color, and that makes for a great reddish brown color.
I really like that color, actually. I'm glad you told me that, because yeah, I forgot what that was called. So I think I'm going to pick a pot of that up then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a really good looking brown.
Yeah, and I actually stumbled on that brown, learning that recipe for myself when I painted my Circle Army. Have you seen any pictures of that one?
I don't think so, not yet.
Now it's on the Privateer Press forums. I've got a thread there of them. If you go onto my Facebook page and go on my albums, I've got some pictures of them there. And I use that red-brown color quite a bit on a few different of the beasts and the leathers for the cloaks and stuff. So it's a great recipe, man. I love it.
Nice.
So you can see how that shadow is slowly building there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to take it now down a notch now and go with the Exile Blue. And this is still a little wet, but it'll still work.
For sure. Hey, when you're doing your commissions and you're paying to speed things up, do you ever use like a hairdryer or anything like that?
All the time.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yep, got one right here by my desk. I've used it a couple times on the PaintCast, but I've opted out of using it because it's very loud, and it's not fun to have hairdryer noise going for 30 seconds, you know.
Sure.
So I'm going to mix up the shadow color that I was using on the metals, which is basically a mixture of coal black and umbral umber. And I'm going to start applying some of the shadows to the gun barrel and the elbow joint, and cleaning that up a little bit. Yeah, and as I've said too from the start, you know, as people have asked me about how this process works and everything, you know, they think the idea of, you know, being on doing a painting tutorial like this live with someone is really cool, but the rebuttal that I always get is, well, you know, there's all those tutorials on YouTube. Why not just, you know, go and check those out? And I tell people, you know, those tutorials are fantastic. You know, people have put a lot of time and effort into explaining how things work and editing it down and creating a really nice looking product. And I've learned things from those tutorials. I mean, there's some good information out there. But the thing is, you know, if I want to paint a unit of, you know, Iron Fang pikemen, a tutorial on Space Marines isn't going to help me with that.
Right.
As much as a tutorial on Iron Fang pikemen would help me, you know. So, and that's the thing is, you know, the personalized nature of this is what I think really makes for a good learning experience.
Yeah, that's actually what led me to look for you when I saw your Iris video. I couldn't find any good videos on how to do a Signar charger. You know, I really liked what you did with the tutorial, so I was like, this guy would probably be a good guy to talk to about this.
Yeah, and you know, going back to one of the first things I said to you when we got on air, you couldn't have picked a better model. I mean, just the lines on this thing, they're perfect. You know, perfect for demonstrating these techniques.
Definitely.
And then keeping this real time also, I think, helps painters. You know. And you know, there's been times when I've been painting here and I've made a mistake or something, and I've had to clean it up and correct it, you know, and that's happening live, and so people can see, you know, that's what you do. That's how you fix that, or that's how you avoid that, you know.
Right.
Forgot where I'd put my base color for this for a second. Looking all over my palette.
Oh yeah.
So did we talk? I forget. Did we talk before or after the Star Wars trailer was released? Or have we even talked about that yet?
Yeah, I think we might have talked after it, but I'm looking forward to it.
Oh man, I seriously almost freaking cried. I'm not kidding. You know, you see all those joke things, you know, on the meme, you know, all the memes of people crying at the end when Han Solo says, you know, Chewie, we're home and stuff. Honestly, that was me. I see.
Oh yeah.
I haven't had that emotional of a reaction to a movie probably since I saw the trailer for Lord of the Rings. You know, the original one, when the first one that came out. You know.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, yeah, it just, gosh, I'm so excited for that movie.
Yeah, me too. I had the same reaction, man. I'm really looking forward to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's going to be, I think it's actually going to be pretty good.
I do too. And I think the Boba Fett origin story is going to be pretty rad as well.
You know, honestly, I've got mixed feelings about that, to be honest with you. Because I think one of the things that made Boba Fett so cool was the fact that no one knew anything about him. you know, that mysterious factor, you know, kind of like the girl in high school that everyone wanted to date, but everyone was afraid to date, you know, because no one knew
Right.
anything about her, you know. Not to you know, sexualize this, but that's, you know, that's what made her attractive, right? Because no one knew anything about her, you know. And so I think that's kind of what it is with Boba Fett too. Is, you know, no one knows anything about him. I mean, yeah, there's the stories that have been the, you know, expanded universe stories and stuff that have been written, but I don't know. I have mixed feelings about it, honestly. So. Not saying I won't go see it, not at all, but just,
Right.
you know, I'll hold my breath a little bit on that one. I won't hold my breath on that one, excuse me.
That makes sense for sure.
All right, so this arm is about ready for some highlights, I think. I've got your shadows on there. We've done your two brush blending on the blue. That's looking pretty good. Let's darken this side up just a little bit more. And by the way, the color that I used, I don't know if you saw me doing the black lining there. The color I used for that was just the mixture of the umbral umber and the coal black.
Awesome. Okay.
So the same shadow color that I'm using for the metals is also the same color that I'm using for the black lining.
Gotcha. I think what always amazes me about the two brush blending is how little paint you have to use.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
what really always, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can spread that paint out pretty good.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Let me get, for the highlights on the metal, we're going with Quicksilver. The delay is catching up in the chat. Drolath just posted something pretty funny about Boba Fett. He says Boba Fett is overrated. He caught a statue and got killed by a blind man with a stick. Not all that impressive. Well played. Well played. All right, so for the highlights here, just like I did on the rest of the miniature, you know, just keep it fairly tight and fairly central to specific locations. You know, as far as not really needing a lot of blending on the highlights. And you see how that just the little bits of where you're touching and where you're building up already adds to the overall look.
Yeah, definitely. It's so subtle at first, and then it just pops out at you.
Yeah, it's how it dries. That's what happens. Yeah. Inside of the arm, I'm not going to worry about too much there because a lot of that's going to be in shadow anyway. All right, and a little bit on the top of the barrel there, and actually, I think we can call that arm done. And in fact, let's just take that toothpick off. Where's my super glue? So that way we can feel like we're making progress.
Sure.
I do that all the time. You know, because I paint modularly like this, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I finish a part like this, I'll just be like, oh, let's glue it on. It'll look done. Helps keep me motivated and moving on to the next part. All right, so there you go.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, that looks so cool.
Yeah, that's starting to come together. Why I'm thinking about it, let's darken up those barrels on the gun.
Okay.
I'm using the coal black umbral umber color. And just filling that in.
I can see why you like that color so much, man. It's such a nice neutral color.
Well, you know, it's black without being black. and I don't know any other way to explain that. It just creates a nice subtle impression of black without giving it that really heavy contrast, or finality of being black,
Mhm.
I don't know really how to explain it beyond that. It's one of my go-to recipes. I love it.
For sure.
Okay, so the golds are nice and dry now, so let's move on with shading those. Like I say, I don't want to use the coal black umbral umber mixture. I think I just want to use regular umbral umber because I think that'll be too dark. The umbral umber will still allow some of that gold to shine through. So let's do a little test of it back here. Keep your blending brush fairly dry when you're two brush blending over metallics, because you don't want the blending color to spread all over the place. You want to keep it fairly controlled.
How do you test for the right moisture? Do you run it across your hands? Like when you were first starting out, let me ask you that. Like, how did you get a feel for what would be the right amount of moisture for your brush?
Good question. How it feels on my tongue, which just sounds really creepy. I'm sorry, but when you run that brush across your tongue, you can feel how much moisture you're putting into it. If you're someone who's not going to use two brush blending in the form of using your own saliva to be the mixing agent, then you'll get to the point where you can run the brush across the back of your hand like that, and you can tell whether or not you have enough moisture for it.
Right.
Yeah. So just like I've learned to do it, with the texture on my tongue, you would learn to do it with the texture on the back of your hand.
Sure.
And so you can see the umbral umber. It's not. It's shadowing it, but it's not to the point that it's completely obscuring the gold beneath. It's just kind of more or less putting an antique appearance to the gold.
Like it's been out in the field for a while, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. I'm definitely going to use your weathering technique, man, that you showed the other night. I really like that.
Yeah, it's real simple. It's very subtle, and you just have to remember to keep your your paints fairly thin, and you can do quite a bit with that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. Come on this side now.
So, and I remember in the last PaintCast too, when you showed the back of that Charger's leg, and you colored in that huge flat surface, like that darker color.
Uh-huh.
Would you typically do that with your main shade coat color, or would you do that just like with a darker color, or how would you choose that?
It depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're wanting to have a lot of contrast in your model, go with a nice dark color. If you want to just have some evenness and neutrality in the appearance of your model, stick with your base coat. But yeah, you can see back here, kind of how that's pretty stark. And I think I remember even doing this last time, kind of holding it at that angle where it's just enough of the black showing that it creates a really nice clear line between the 2 points. And see, I've even done that here on the bottom of the gold. I've applied just a straight coat of umbral umber, on this underside here for the same purpose.
Right.
Just to, because really this part of the model on the real jack, if it were to exist, that would be hollow right in there. And so by applying that solid color there like that, you're creating that impression of hollowness. Is that even a word, hollowness? You're creating the impression of it being hollow. There we go. Gosh, I need to speak like I'm an actual educated person. Man. It's late.
Yeah, you've had a long day.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm gonna play that card right now.
Well, fair enough, man.
All right. And then here on the this area here, I'm actually going to go to the coal black umbral umber color for shading in here, just because I think it has a little bit more of a sooty type appearance, from the exhaust. And I think that would look a little better than just going with the straight brown.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And then drop this shadow color in the vents. Now, if you wanted to get real fancy, you could actually paint these vents like white and then wash a little bit of orange ink into them to make a glowing type effect.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen people do that before. And that looks pretty good. You kind of have to be careful, to not overdo it, but the final effect can actually look pretty cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Now, if I remember right, you live in California, right, JT?
I live in Chicago, actually.
Chicago, wow. Where did I get California from? Oh, I remember, that's right, because we briefly talked about me even coming out to Chicago, huh?
Right.
Yeah. That's right, I remember now. Anthony, the guy I had on earlier, tonight, he's the guy from California.
Oh, I got you.
Yeah, how's the weather over there in Chicago right now?
Man, we just had our first nice day in a long time. It was 80 degrees today. It was amazing.
Oh, wow. It was cold here. Rained most of the day here in Idaho.
Oh, that's a bummer.
Yeah. Well, it's Idaho. It'll snow in July here. It seriously will.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it happened a couple summers ago, actually. Someone just asked in chat if I ever use the P3 mixing mediums. I don't. Not that they're not a bad product or anything. It's just it doesn't really fit my paint style to use that type of stuff. That's more for glazing, mixing mediums. And there's times that I will glaze, use a glazing technique on a model, but for the most part, if I can get away with two-brush blending, that's what I use because it's faster. It can take quite a while to use glazes to build up a gradient.
Yeah, you're probably looking at like 10 coats, right?
Sometimes, yeah, and I mean even some of those nice, professionally painted models, by the real artists, quote unquote. I'm sure some of those layers they've probably got 30, 40, 50 layers on some of those highlights and shadows.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I don't have that kind of patience.
Yeah, me either.
Yeah. Give me an airbrush.
Oh, man. I want to get an airbrush so bad, man.
Yeah?
Oh, yeah.
What would you get? What kind?
Probably Iwata Eclipse is what I'm looking at. So that's what I was thinking about.
Yeah, that's my workhorse airbrush.
Yeah, hear real good things about those.
Yeah, they're a good brush. If in fact, if you're in Chicago, there is a store that I will often buy stuff from. It's called Chicago Airbrush Supply,
Okay.
and they have some of the best prices on the internet. That's why I buy stuff from them. But they're always having sales, and with Memorial Day coming up, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they're going to have a Memorial Day sale. I'm not sure where in Chicago they're located or anything, but I've always found their prices to be extremely reasonable. So,
Awesome.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll for sure check them out. I just got to figure out a good situation for a booth and stuff like that. 'Cause, I'm in an apartment with my girlfriend, so we don't have like a garage or anything, unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, and with acrylic paints, it's not so much the smell, it's the dust. And even the spray booth that I have here that I use, it's just basically filtering out the dust.
Gotcha.
And they come with a filter, and you can replace the filters, and so there's ways you can manage it to make it happen.
Yeah, and I wanted to ask you about that too. Do you run a hose out a window, or where do you filter the dust out of?
So I'm really lucky. I have a wife who's very understanding and allows me to indulge in this hobby, probably more than I should. But when we bought this house back in December, half of the basement was unfinished. Part of it was a big family room, and then the other part was unfinished. And she agreed to let me build a paint studio down here. And it's probably going to be a couple years before this room that I've built on the other side of the wall, the room on the other side of the wall gets finished. Okay? So right now, my paint booth, spray booth, there's a hole in the wall, and it just vents right out that hole into that empty room. So, which is really just rafters and cement at this point. There's nothing in there. But at the same time, even with all the airbrushing that I do, where I'll sit down on a Saturday sometimes, and if I got the time, I'll airbrush straight for 4, 5, 6 hours, maybe longer. Even then, you go in there and look around, there's no dust anywhere. The filter that I've got in the booth traps a lot of that.
I got you.
Yeah.
Well, I am going to quote you on that, brother, because that's the
That's fine.
the discussion we've been having.
That's fine. That's fine. Yeah, and one thing I've seen some guys do is you can take go to Lowe's or Home Depot and get yourself like a 5-gallon bucket. A lot of these spray booths have a vent hose attached to them, or part of them, and take that 5-gallon bucket, and in the lid cut a hole big enough for your vent hose to go into, and then at the bottom of the bucket cut an exhaust hole. Okay, so air can pass through, and then fill that bucket with, or maybe don't even fill it, but throw a couple of go to the HVAC aisle, where they have all the filters for the furnaces.
Mm-hmm.
And just buy a couple of those cheap filters that are just the filter material with the cardboard frame. Buy 2 or 3 of those, they're like 60 cents each, and then stuff them into that 5-gallon bucket. So when you exhaust your hood, you're exhausting the dust into that 5-gallon bucket, which is then exhausting out the hole of the bottom of the 5-gallon bucket, but the dust is collecting in all that filter that you've put in there.
That is a really cool idea. I never even thought about that.
Yeah, and you can tuck that bucket behind your desk or under your desk or something like that, because the volume of air that it moves is so little that you're really not going to create a lot of pressure, and you're just trying to stop the dust from going all over the place. That's really the big concern with airbrushing. So there you go. You can tell her that's the approved method. for for doing that.
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
Yeah, no worries, man. No worries.
Cool. So.
All right, so
Yeah,
let me.
these are looking good, man.
Yeah, yeah, and you know, I'm trying to. And one thing you can do in your own army when you're painting, a little bit more of an advanced technique, but as you move further down the model, you know, darken your shadows further, and that just creates a natural effect of you know, volume and depth for the model.
Right.
Okay. So these knee plates underneath the gold knee plates need to actually be painted the silver color. So get the pig iron off the palette there. And this is one advantage with wet palette and metallics, is if the paint's been sitting on the palette for too long, it starts to separate because it's absorbing the moisture through the palette.
Right. Yeah, I think I need a new pot of pig iron, man, because mine's not covering as good as yours is for sure.
Does it have a black label on it or a white label on it?
Let me look. I think it's got a black label on it.
Okay.
Let's see. Yeah, maybe that might be part of the problem.
Yeah, because they changed the formulation on them a couple years ago, but I still think there's some of the white label paints floating around out there.
Let's see, my cold steel has a black label. Yeah, you know what? This pot I've got has a white label on it.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, the old white label stuff was crap.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. In fact, you may even, I don't know if you bought that recently, you might be able to talk to the parts replacement store, and they may be able to send you a new black label pot.
Yeah, I think I'll hit them up about that and just see. Because, I've
Yeah.
had it for a minute, but I think I'll see what they say.
Yeah. Because I believe all that was supposed to be, you know, returned back, so.
Right. Yeah, I've been using GW metallics, which are actually, man, they're pretty okay. I like those.
You know, I haven't used the GW paints in a long time. And honestly, I'm just kind of turned off on them because of their pricing and their business model. I mean, I don't know. From a hobby standpoint, they've got terrific looking models. I mean, the Vendetta, the Space Marines. I mean, there's some great looking stuff, you know. But sometimes I just feel like they're a bunch of douches.
Yeah, man. Well, they charge up the nose for all their stuff for sure.
Right. Yeah. And you know, that just doesn't. I mean, yeah, I get making a profit. You know, I'm a small businessman. I totally get that. You know, but the how controlling they are over their product is what really bothers me. You know.
Yeah, definitely. Plus, you pay like $4 for a really small pot of paint too.
Right. Right. Now, as far as these rivets go, that are like on the leg here, here's a good way to do them. It's a little more time consuming, but you get a little bit of a better looking rivet, if that makes any sense. Take your umbral umber and just, you know, using the edge of the brush there, paint the rivet and try to get as close as you can to the surface without actually getting it on the surface as you can.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a line of rivets, okay? And then you would take your actual rivet color that you're going to use. So in this case, we're going to try, I'll start with the Dwarven Gold, okay? And give it a good mix here. because the dwarven gold that I got left on my palette here is pretty thinned out. All right, and then take your applicator brush. A little bit of it on the tip there. And now what you're going to do is just put that gold on top of the brown.
Oh, wow.
And what you have, you can see it right there really well, is you're almost creating a shadow for the rivet and then a highlight for the rivet.
Right.
If that makes sense. It's kind of like
Yeah.
what we did on the back of the leg here a little bit, you know. We're applying a really dark color and then the rivet color on top. And as you pull away a little more, it really looks pretty nice, actually. You know?
Yeah, and the light deepens the shadow on it too.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yeah. And so that's how you're going to want to do those rivets. It's a really simple technique. The only problem is you're painting the rivet twice.
Right.
Yeah. And then if you're adding a highlight on top of that gold, you know, you're potentially painting it, you know, 3 or 4 times.
It looks like the gold didn't really, well, that color of gold, I guess, didn't really even need that much of a highlight, though. It's so bright, you know.
Yeah, you know what, I'm kind of looking at that and kind of thinking the same thing. I do think what we should do, though, and let me get the elven gold here while I'm thinking about it. In fact, we could probably even use, since we're only going to be doing just kind of rivet highlights, P3 solid gold. Let's try this and see how this looks. Definitely a brighter gold. Let me put my palette on the window here, on the camera. And there's your P3 solid gold. There's your scale 75 dwarven gold. So it's definitely a lighter gold.
Right.
And what you would want to do is just take this highlight color and just hit the rivets with it.
Cool, okay.
And then maybe, in addition, any kind of edge on the armor. And you can see how it makes those pop out just a little bit more.
Definitely.
You know, and then if you even took, like, say, some P3 brass balls,
Mm-hmm.
and mixed it with just a little bit of the solid gold. Or you could even take the quicksilver and mix it with a little bit of the solid gold and get a very similar color. Okay.
Okay.
And then hit those rivets. And then they're going to pop out, you know, even more at that point.
Right.
So, there you go. Show you something else real quick that you can do that works really well on gold is P3 brown ink. It's kind of doing the same thing as the just regular umbral umber was going to do, or does, but it just gives a little more depth to the gold, a little more warmth to the gold. You don't want to use straight P3 brown ink because it's going to be too strong. You want to dilute it down a little bit. You can see what it looks like on my thumb there. Okay,
Right.
and just add a soft wash of that into the shadows, and it just richens up that brown just a little bit more. The gold just a little bit more. Gives it just a little bit more of that antiqued kind of look.
Yeah.
Kind of turns it almost a little bit more towards a copper just a little bit. If you're not liking that, I can take it off.
Oh, no, that looks awesome. I love how it's kind of like a reddish tint, too. That's what I really like about the brown ink P3, actually.
Yeah. I remember the first time I bought the brown ink from P3, because I had remembered the old chestnut ink from GW, and that was a lot more brown than this one is, and so I pulled it out and slapped it on thinking that was the result I was going to get, and just about freaked out.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but I love it now. I mean, it's a great color now.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I use it for a lot of leather stuff. Whenever I paint leather, that's part of what I use.
Yeah, this works really well on leathers too.
Yeah.
It really helps clean those up. But that's how you would kind of move around the shadows and the highlights and pick those out, and you can start to see it's really, those golds are really starting to pop now.
Yeah, definitely. They look really natural too. That's what I like about those.
Yeah. So we'll go ahead and wrap up there tonight.
Okay.
We're getting on about a little over an hour that we've been on. So if no one in the chat room has any questions, we'll. I was gonna work a little bit on Bradigus tonight, but I'm pretty tired, guys. I need to get some sleep, so I'm gonna go ahead and pass on that fourth PaintCast for tonight. But I do got some free time coming up on the weekend, so keep your eyes open on this Twitch channel, because I'll probably be putting up some impromptu PaintCasts over the weekend. But in the meantime, if you have any questions, you can email me at redmodeling@gmail.com. You can also find me on Facebook at facebook.com/redmodelingpaint. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, offer any advice, take a look at something you've painted and give feedback. I'm really into helping people out like that. So every Wednesday, in fact, I have on my Facebook page what I call Whip Wednesday, and encourage people to post up pictures of what they're painting and what they're working on. So you can always go over there and check that out as well. But JT, do you have any questions tonight on anything that we've covered so far?
No, man, you pretty much nailed it. Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, I will touch bases with you via email in the next few days, and we'll talk about where we go from here. But I'm glad this has been working out for you, and I'm glad that you feel like you're getting something out of it. So, but until next time, guys, thanks for being here tonight, and I look forward to seeing you all again later. And JT, take care, and I'll talk to you again soon.
Thanks, man. You too.
All right, good night, guys.
All right.
See ya.